All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Joe Martin with the Warrior Mindset Podcast. Today, we're here with a good buddy of mine, Skye Leibee. Been a buddy of mine for, I was trying to think about it before we started the show. It was like, something.
Yeah.
So we're at, something, so we're at 20 right now. But I invited Skye into the show because, like the show that we're talking about from a warrior mindset point of view, and a foundation of where you come as an individual. The show on this podcast is mainly bringing on individuals to kind of get their idea on how they're kind of plotting through their lives, how they get through, whether or not they've had some difficulties in their lives and how they've progressed, how they've, hit life head on, how they've possibly hit some quicksand, how they've possibly, spinning wheels, in the gravel till they finally hit pay dirt, who's helped them along the way, how their own mind, is working along the way. So Skye's been a good buddy of mine with the local Fresno PD here in town. Man, I'm going to just kind of get you. I'm going to listen to you for a while because this guy's got, a long history and pretty colorful history on where he's been so far in his life. And these are things we're trying to do in this podcast. Just get some really interesting people. Maybe you and I, through the interviewers and the subscribers can get a little idea on what he's gone through, how you can compare your life where he's come from, or think to yourself, wow, you know what? He got through something tough. We're going to find out. He got through something tough that maybe I can learn to possibly take into consideration and then help me along the way. So without further ado, I'm going to kind of squeeze over here and give you a big handshake, bro. And, thank you very much for coming on the show. And this guy, just from the beginning, man, tell people kind of like where you're from, where you come, where you're going in life and things like that. But where you come from and, just a little bit of your history.
Wow. Where am I from? So originally from the Philippines, right? I was born in the Philippines. I'm a Navy brat. Dad was on the Enterprise. I was born in Subic Bay back in Vietnam era. We're
going to talk about that because I was stationed there. We've talked about that over the years too.
Yeah. So, but I didn't stay a long time over there, right?
Yeah.
Mom and Dad came over here probably when I was 13 months old, and I've kind of been all over California. My early years, I was up in Northern California. Mom and Dad split up, moved down to Southern California during my junior high years, and then eventually high school and college and into my professional life. I've been here in Central California.
What area down in Southern Cal?
So Orange County.
Orange County?
Yeah. I was playing baseball and going to junior high down there. My dad met a lady down there, got together, and I was down there for my 7th and 8th grade years. So I was playing baseball and football down there.
How many years was your dad in the service?
12.
12 years?
Yeah.
So when he got back from the Philippines with your mom, was he still in?
He was still in. He was I think they call him a master at arms, right? He was a naval police officer.
Police officer, yeah.
And we were on Treasure Island. That's what I remember for, my elementary school years. We were stationed there, and I remember going out with him and a couple guys that I called my uncles, right, that were some shipmates of his. But, yeah, we were down there on Treasure Island.
It's kind of funny. The apple does not fall far from the tree, He's got the MP, military police, and then all of a sudden, we're going to get into more of his history. That's where you're at now. Where'd you play most of your ball? Like high school ball? High school ball
down in Taft.
At Taft?
Around Bakersfield. Yeah. So high school and college there. Originally down in Southern California, playing travel ball and what have you. I was actually pretty good. So my dad got me on a travel ball team down there. Ended up playing with Aaron Boone, who's the manager of the Yankees now. I played with him on the same team with him, and Doug DeSensei's son, Tim DeSensei. They were both playing for the Angels. Doug was playing for the Angels, and Bob Boone obviously was playing for the Angels. And then something happened with my dad's work and what have you. Anyways, he wanted to go back home, and he was originally from the Taft, Bakersfield area. So we picked up, and he and I moved back to Taft.
What did he do after he got out of the military?
So he worked for Visa. He was kind of a communications, IT kind of guy.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. But did you play more than baseball? We're going to get into the baseball. He's got a great, colorful baseball history and things like that before the department. But
yeah, so other than school ball, but it was funny because you look at nowadays and you look at some of the recruiting and all these recruiting services that are out there, especially with travel ball, PG, and Perfect Game and all that stuff that goes on. Looking at it back then, playing baseball, I had a football coach for the Orange Youth Junior All-American Football Association show up at an all-star baseball game, right? And,
how old were you then?
I was in 8th grade.
8th grade.
I was in 8th grade, man. And I liked football, but I knew nothing about playing like organized football, especially tackle football. But he came up to me and my dad after the game and introduced himself, told us who he was, and said, "Hey, look like you're a really good athlete. I'd like to have you on my team. Come out and try out this kind of stuff." And so I ended up playing football my 8th grade year. It wasn't for school, but it was, like
a youth travel team.
Youth travel team kind of thing, yeah. So then I obviously I played in high school and college.
And was it mostly like, a lot of kids back when you were younger too, and even, I got you by some, and it's even, different then, is whatever the season was, you were playing that sport. Did you do the cross country? Were you a soccer guy too, a wrestler, or mainly the football?
It's football and baseball. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. When I was a lot younger on Treasure Island, friends were playing soccer and what have you, and I went home and told my dad, "Hey, I'm gonna try the soccer stuff," and he was like, "You're not playing soccer." Okay, I guess I'm not playing soccer then, right? I guess it'll be baseball and football.
That was it. And I was more the soccer player.
Yeah,
but we won't go into that. But so did you play? Did you play high school football?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
All 4?
All 4 years. High school football, and then once I got out of high school, I went to Taft Junior College, and I played football and baseball at Taft JC too.
Oh, you played football for those guys too. Yeah. Oh, okay. Nice. When did you kind of, like, obviously, so nowadays, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, we both got kids and they've progressed along the way in their sports, but nowadays it's a lot harder to be, 2-sport player. When did you realize to yourself, and this is years ago, that, probably not going to, perform as well or do as well or be able to progress further in the football and then just stick with the baseball?
Probably too late. Right? Yeah. I mean, if I'm being honest with you, it was too late. Junior college, right? I wanted to play football.
What position did you play?
I was a running back.
Running back?
Yeah. And I thought I was fast enough. I thought I was big enough. I thought I played ball well enough to maybe get a scholarship and go somewhere else.
Like finish a 4 year.
Yeah, finish out a 4 year playing football. And I did. I mean, I started for one of the best junior college football teams in the nation at the time.
Yeah.
And traditionally, we were able to recruit because we were small. So we had, D1 caliber guys that just didn't have the grades.
Or they got rolled back. Was that the term? I think they use that term nowadays, a rollback from a D1 or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, and in fact, one of the guys that started on the other side as a running back, he was a pro baseball player, right? Played in the Cleveland Indians at the time, right?
Yeah.
Organization. And got released, decided to quit, whatever the case may be, but he came back to Taft to play football, ended up getting a scholarship to go to Oregon, and then he actually played in the league for a little while.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. Yeah, he went Patriots and Panthers. Now,
so obviously, I'm reeling you along like a fish here, because then obviously baseball was, which we're going to let you know, he went further. But I know that it was from what I know from your history, pitching. Did you?
Well, professionally, yes.
Yeah.
Right. But through high school
and college,
no.
Utility, you do everything?
Yeah. Well, I was mainly an outfielder. Yeah, I was fast.
Yeah.
I could run. I ran a 4.40, and so I could get to the ball.
Yeah.
I had a strong arm, obviously, because professionally they tried to make me a pitcher, and they said, "You're left-handed. You throw in the mid-90s. We're going to make you a pitcher." So I could get the ball to home plate in a hurry. So I had a pretty good stick. I could run, so I could steal bags, the whole 9 yards.
Swing lefty or righty?
Swing lefty.
Swing lefty. So lefty all the way.
Yeah, swinging lefty. But I did pitch some in high school and college, but that was in tournaments, right? When you needed arms or to close out a game. Right, and they said, "Well, we're going to shove this guy up on the hill and throws in the mid-90s. We'll see if
just throw fastball, see if anybody, yeah."
And that was my mentality. It was a closer. I'm going to throw it as hard as I can to see what you can do with it, and so that's what I did.
So out of the outfield, you're one of those guys where nowadays they clock everybody on throwing 95, out of the outfield. when you're throwing it in, and things like that.
Right.
Do you think that's where they kind of found you out? Like, I mean, they see the way you're throwing the ball from the outfield that they would stick you on the mound?
No. Funny enough, we hosted a tournament in junior college in Taft, and we had a late game, and I don't know, it had to be 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and I can't remember if I came in mid-game or if I was going to close the game out or whatever the case may be, but I came in and was throwing on the hill, and then after the game, an Oakland scout approached me, and so he was still there, at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, watching the game and saw me throwing, and obviously had the gun on me, and saw that I was throwing pretty hard, so he just started following me from there.
And now it's kind of amazing because nowadays, hey, the guy's going to be in the outfield. Well, we're going to have you throw too. This is college. High school, maybe different story. The guys, multi-players up like third base, they'll pitch, whatever the case may be. But this is a JUCO, and then you're just every once in a while just pull Skye from, not from the bullpen. You're getting pulled in from right field.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait a minute, he's getting pulled in. Wait, this guy's not coming from the bullpen.
Yeah.
He's coming from right field.
Yeah.
I mean, those that would happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the way it was. I mean,
Can't do that nowadays.
No, you wouldn't see that nowadays. But back then, I mean, because our college was right next to our high school, that college coach had seen me play in high school, so he knew who I was and he knew what I could do. And so when I came on the team, he was just like, hey, I know I can bring you in from wherever and put you up on the hill.
Yeah. And then you still had a stick too, decently too.
Yeah, I'm still in the lineup.
Yeah, but if you notice, if the people subscribing and watching this, this guy's a thick dude now. His baseball picture, we may have to find it and put it on the podcast. Dude is long and lean,
It might have been a little thinner back
then.
Yeah.
A little bit then. No, just, and then we're going to go into some of your other history with the police department and all that type of stuff. But when I saw the picture of him with the Oakland A's baseball card, I was like, "This is you?" I think he even had a mustache.
He had
or
a
something like that.
mustache.
He had a mustache.
He had
too.
to rock the mustache.
See, that's coming back though. That's coming back.
Mustache and a
is
mullet.
coming back. And the mustache and a mullet.
I see it on our son.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, man, my dad always used to tell me, he's one of those things, grew up in New York. He's from the Bronx. And back in the day, I think they were called chinos, right? Which is nowadays Dockers, right? And we used to give him a bunch of crap. Dad, man, you got to wear some Dockers or this or that. He goes, don't worry about it. It's going to be full circle.
Coming.
That and the penny loafers, back in the 50s. And they came back and left and came back again. But, the mustache and the mullet are starting to come back, So you could put it back. Well, I don't know if you could wear the mullet right now, could you?
Not even if I tried.
Not even if you tried. Yeah. So once you got finished with Taft and Oakland took a look at you, was that your sophomore year that you got
No, so
drafted?
I got drafted my freshman year. So after my freshman year, I got drafted. The scout had a national cross checker come out, and he ran me through all the drills, both for hitting and throwing and running and all that stuff. And he told me that I was going to be drafted in the first 10 rounds, and I was like, cool, because it was the first year that they had reduced the rounds. I guess it was infinite before that, but they said 50 rounds this year, and you'll go in the first 10. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
So I had to wait the second day. So I ended up going in the 21st round, which kind of, I guess somewhat spoiled and being a 18, 19-year-old kid and thinking I was better than, I was like, well, that's kind of crappy. You tell me that I'm going to get drafted in the first 10 and you draft me in the 21st. So you know what? I'm not going to sign with you. I'm going to go back and play football. And so I went back my sophomore year and played football.
No baseball?
And I played baseball.
Played in the fall.
Played in the fall. Played football my sophomore
Springtime
year.
kicks in.
Springtime kicks in, and I played baseball, right? And the A's still had the rights to me because they had drafted me. And funny enough, looking back on it, what I should have done was just drop football after my freshman year and actually transfer to Fresno City. And I'll tell you why. One of the reasons is because Coach Scott was there at the time, right? So
and this is a long time ago, and the guy just retired this past year.
Well, 30 plus years, right?
Yeah, almost, right?
It's funny that I talked to him a couple of years ago, and he remembered who I was.
Yeah.
But anyways, he had received a call, and back then he had, Fresno City kind of set the standard for JUCO ball in California, and I get, they're still pretty good. but they were winning state titles and that kind of thing. They had a couple guys that went to the bigs. But he had received a call from the University of North Carolina coach asking, hey, I need 2 lefties next year. Do you have anybody? And he said, no, but Taft's got 2 of them, right? So the North Carolina coach at the time flew out to Taft and watched a couple ball games and ended up talking to me and the other lefty.
Yeah.
He ended up going to Fresno State at the time. But, I look back and I was like, well, maybe I should have focused on baseball a little more, because bigger and better things are coming in that direction than football. Because I was getting, small stuff from football. It was all D2, NAIA.
Well, also
that
too
kind
is
of
like
stuff.
standing tall, 5'10".
Yeah, I'll take that.
I think we're going to give him 5'10".
we'll take that.
But also too is right. We think about it and from a society point of view, and you and I have kind of similar philosophies. For guys, it's participation awards and all this type of stuff. That if your mom's 5'2", your dad's 5'2", but then Johnny says he wants to be the center for the LA Lakers, there's reality, right? No, Johnny, and sometimes society goes, you can't tell Johnny that. He can persevere and do what he wants. No, he's not going to be 6'11".
Right.
You know what I mean? So let's work within those parameters to get you to, if you want to do something professionally, the best, he could be a jockey. I don't know, get on a horse and ride a horse.
Right.
But at 5'10", 5'9", 5'10", playing football, in reality, there's not a lot of guys playing, and especially as running back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, you could have said to yourself back then, it's like baseball player, Altuve, 5'5", 5'6".
Yeah.
The guy's still jacking him, and infield wise, he's scooping him up like a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
So you played that extra year of football.
I did.
Yeah. And
I shouldn't have.
You shouldn't.
I had a great time.
If you played fall ball, if you played Taft fall ball, do you think you probably would have been a little bit better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Anytime you can put extra work into it, right? You're probably going to get better when you start focusing on a single sport.
Would you have concentrated more on the pitching, or did you at the time, like your second year back at Taft? Did you still bat?
I was still in the lineup.
Utility guy, huh?
Still a utility guy. Still playing the outfield, first base. Still swinging the stick, and then every now and again coming in, and closing games out, throwing in a tournament, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But,
and then so when they came back around, Oakland came back around. They still had the rights to you, correct? There's no draft again, right? They still had you, or do you get redrafted?
Well, they have the rights to me until the draft.
Oh,
right?
check.
So I got drafted in 92. They had the rights to me until the draft in 93, right? And so that's where I started having to make decisions. Do I want to go to North Carolina? Because the North Carolina coach was interested, but because of the way the school credit transfer system worked, right, from California to North Carolina, it was like, hey,
were you missing some credits?
Yeah, this class isn't going to count. This class isn't going to count. I'm like, well, they counted all the state schools, right? And he's like, well, then we're not state. We're UNC, right? And so he says, you're going to have to, I think he said I was going to have to play or take a full load in the summer, a full load in the fall, and then maybe I'd be eligible for the spring. And so I was thinking, well, so I'm not going to get to play ball in the spring.
Maybe not. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's not going to work, you know? And so, my dad and I had a discussion, and I had some decisions to make to figure out what I was going to do. And, so I decided to sign. And so I signed with Oakland in 93. Ended up going to rookie ball in Arizona. Yeah.
Yeah. And how far did you go?
Just single A.
Single A.
Yeah. Just single A. Hindsight's 20/20. And when I look back, I wasn't injured. It wasn't an anatomical injury type of thing that kept me out of the game. It was my head. And,
oh, no way, really?
Yeah. So, looking back, should I have gone and, went independent and then tried to get picked up by somebody else?
More time.
Absolutely.
In the saddle.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Just because, but I was not of that mindset at the time.
Yeah.
And then I decided to become a cop.
Yeah. So did you do 1 year?
No, I played 3 years.
I played 3 years.
Yeah, I played 3 years. My first year rookie ball, I was in Arizona. We actually won an Arizona League championship.
Nice.
Second year, I was Northwest League up in Oregon, Washington, Idaho. Played in Medford, was where we were at.
Yeah.
And then third year, Midwest League, I was in West Michigan.
And it was one of those things where you decided that you're good enough, like that's it, I'm good, or was it a release?
Oh no, I got released.
You got released.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I got released.
Yeah,
No, it wasn't me.
Wasn't me. It was the coach.
It was the coach.
Yeah.
It was the coach.
The organization.
Did you get playing time, like some good playing time?
Yeah, I mean, my first year I was closer.
Yeah,
right.
Nice.
I had and which was great for me because I had that mentality. The record wouldn't show it. I was 4-4, but I had a .98 ERA. So nobody was scoring on me the right way.
Yeah,
right.
Right,
They weren't
exactly.
earning it.
Yeah.
So I thought it was doing pretty well. And then, and obviously I thought I did well enough to get moved to short season A
Yeah.
when I went to
Of course, you kidding
Medford,
me?
right?
Yeah.
So, but see, at the time, Oakland instituted this like 8-man rotation. So I would be partnered up with someone. Let's say that you and I were partners,
Yep.
right? Game day is Monday. So I'm going to start this game and I'm going to throw, I'm scheduled to throw 5.
Right.
You're going to close it out. So I make it 5, you take it the rest of the way, right? The next rotation, let's say our next scheduled rotation for us to throw is on Friday or Saturday. You're going to start.
Oh,
You're going to throw 5.
I'm going to get to 5.
And then I'm going to close it out, right?
Right.
Now, if let's say that I'm not able to make it 5 and I can go 3, right, before the coach decides to pull me, well, then that's when you're looking at the bullpen coming in, cleaning up for those 2 innings, and then you're going to get your shot, right?
Check. Gotcha.
So they instituted that. So they tried to make me a starter my second year. And actually, I thought I did pretty well. I kind of liked that idea of knowing exactly when I was going to throw, knew when my bullpen days were, knew when my long toss days were, the whole 9 yards, right? My schedule was all set up because I knew exactly when I was going to throw. So it wasn't bad. And then my third year, they tried to make me a middleman. And middleman, you just never know when you're going to throw.
Yeah.
You
may
hey,
not
we
be
need
warmed
you.
up.
Yeah.
They give you 1 inning. That's
Yeah.
about it.
And that's about it. So that wasn't my cup of tea. And I didn't do real well.
Did you like the Did you like the aspect of that starter because it's fresh, the game's starting, you haven't met any of the ball players yet, they don't know you yet. Do you feel like did you like that competitiveness?
I did, but as the season went on, that really wasn't so much of a competitive edge. Because at that level they're keeping keeping charts on everybody. So I knew all the hitters from playing them for 3 series.
Right.
And so when we look at our charts,
you knew exactly
hey,
what to throw.
This is what this guy does against this pitch and this inning and this count. So, we would be calling the games that way. And so there was a lot that went into it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe for the first series, there was a competitive edge like that when you're first starting out. But as the season wore on, that really wasn't that big a deal and they're charting us, right? So they knew what we threw. They knew what our tendencies were. Where we were at in the count, if we were up in the count, behind in the count, what we were going to do. They kept those charts on us also.
What do you think was the biggest thing? Like, when anybody gets released, obviously, what are the determining factors, do you think? Or, they say, thank you, but no thank you, but don't give you an answer and, kind of get your baggage and you're out the door. Or do they go, hey, listen, we love what you did, but it's just not going to fit.
But that's not the way I was released.
Yeah, okay.
It was just, it was getting called, and you kind of know it too when they say,
get your baggage and get out of locker.
Yeah, I mean, they essentially, right at the time, that's pretty much what it was.
No explanation, really?
No, they say, hey, Skip wants to see you in the locker room or see you in his office, and you're like, well, I'm done, right? I mean, that's
like you see in the movies.
Yeah,
exactly like that.
I mean, it pretty much is because you go, well, I don't go in there any other time,
exactly.
right, unless I approach him.
Yeah,
but when the clubhouse manager comes out and hey, Skip wants to see you in his office, you're like, okay, well, I might as well just start packing up my stuff because I'm done.
Let me go with my bags.
Yeah, you know it, and so you walk in and
he gives you good luck.
I don't even know if he said good luck. I think he probably just said, hey, the organization's going in a different direction.
Yes,
and you're not part of those plans. So effectively now you're released.
Yeah, and now could you have? Nowadays it's so more complicated. You got agents and this and that. Could you have said to yourself, okay, thank you very much, and I'm going to start making some phone calls?
Well, I had an agent.
Yeah.
I had an agent then, and that's something I could have done. But so you got to understand that I was, I was 20. I think I was 20 years old when I got released. And
jeez,
I was,
you got released.
Yeah. So when you look at, at least through my athletic career, I was one of the top athletes in high school. I was one of the top athletes in college, right? There was a reason I got drafted. There's a reason that I was a dual sport athlete in JUCO, right? I think there was one other guy on my football team that was a dual sport athlete like me, played baseball with me, right?
Yeah.
Guy from North Carolina. But, so when you've had success in athletics pretty much your whole life, and then you get called in the office at 20 years old and they go, hey, you're not good enough. We'll see you later. What do you do?
Yeah, right.
So I certainly wasn't in the right headspace to make a decision at that time of what I was going to do. Not the right decision anyway. So I just said, piss on it. I'm gonna go be a cop because I had also wanted to be a cop.
Well, kind of follow your dad's footsteps a little.
Yeah,
bit.
One of those things. Military. And getting to see the red and blues when he was on base and that kind of stuff. It had a big impact on me and so it was, hey, I'm either going to be a baseball player or I'm going to be a cop, one of the two. And I got to do both, so I can't complain that much.
It's kind of interesting because, we'll continue it like on this. I got a couple questions I'm thinking in my head to talk to you about, but it's kind of interesting because there's that regimented lifestyle as an athlete. You know what I mean? And I wasn't even close to where you were. I was a mediocre, athlete in high school and, D2, D3 soccer player at best. Baseball player, like I mentioned on the podcast before, I was one of those seniors. I got cut from the senior team because I couldn't freaking hit the ball. Vacuum cleaner, I could feel the ball, but I couldn't hit. And these are still some funny things to tell about people because you got to remember those things in your life. And these are all the foundations that we build, the brick and mortar of who we are, in life. Then you say to yourself, I got cut from my, high school football team, a baseball team. I'm a senior and a sophomore beats me out. But then in my life, all of a sudden you join the military and, I was very fortunate and very blessed to have, spent 6 years in the military, most of that time in the SEAL team. You're like, couldn't really play baseball, but then he became a SEAL.
But he's SEAL.
You know what I mean? But the foundation where you're coming from, where you are, this huge foundation, first of all, of your dad, because I'm sure there's some sort of disciplinary aspect as far as he's a military guy, and obviously MP, certain structures that you grew up in your life, obviously, because you did well enough to play sports, two sports no less. At 20, because at the time, could you be a sworn-in officer at 20?
No.
Even then, right? Okay.
You could go to the academy, but you had to be 21 to actually get out on the street.
Right. And so when you went, you're like 20 years old. You're like, oh, okay, baseball's done, and chat with your dad, this and that. He said, hey, listen, go for it. Did you go and see the academy at 20, or did you hit 21 before you joined?
Yeah, I was 20 and a half, I think, when I went into the academy.
So like graduation was.
Actually, I wasn't. I was still 20 because we started in August, and I turned 21 in October.
Yeah.
And we graduated in December.
That's when in December. Yeah.
So I was 21 by the time I graduated, but I was 20 when I went in.
And it's kind of interesting. I was probably right in the, joined, you did your pro career. Mine was right out of high school into the military, but I went through BUD/S around 20 years old. You know what I mean? So around that same time with that, that same kind of typical foundation, then you had to wait a little bit, right, to get,
No, so I was a reserve officer.
Yeah.
Right. So even while playing baseball, I was a reserve officer.
Oh, no way.
So I could do that at, gosh, we're going back now. I think I had to be 20, maybe 18 years old. Who knows?
Alzheimer's kicking in.
Yeah. But I know I couldn't go out on the street by myself, right? I had to be with another officer.
Oh, check. Gotcha.
So I was considered what they call a level 2 reserve officer.
Right,
so I could do that. Right, had the whole gun belt, all the peace officer powers and all that stuff, but I didn't have to. I don't think I had to be 21 at the time, but I had been hired with my hometown department at that time as a reserve officer.
And you were in Tulare,
right? I was in Taft.
Taft.
Yeah. Okay. So luckily they sponsored me through the academy. So then I got to use their gun, ammo, gun belts, all that stuff. Really, the only thing I had to pay at the time was tuition. And once I graduated, then they hired me as a contract officer. So at the time, what that meant was that I was getting a salary, but no benefits, right? And then 6 months later, Visalia called, so I went with Visalia, and I was with Visalia for 5.5.
5.5 years.
Yeah.
What? Now there was just mainly, the term beat cop, just a patrol guy.
In Taft, yes.
Yeah. Visalia,
I was canine and SWAT there.
Okay.
Obviously, everybody starts out in patrol.
Yeah, of course.
So I did my patrol time, what have you, and then I was a canine officer for 4.5 years. There and on their SWAT team for 3.5.
So it's kind of interesting. One of the reasons, I brought Skye on is, he's got this huge, and we're going to continue on with some of his history, is the fact that some people become complacent in their lives. Some people, they get a job, they live their life for 20, 30 years, they retire and whatnot. The people that I personally associate with in my life are people that are, the go-getters, the motivated people, the people that, build a brick and mortar in their life, and we know we're associated. I have, the chiropractic office. I own the gym, and we work with a lot of the police officers, firefighters, guys getting ready for, boot camp and whatnot. But what do you think the percentage of police officers aspire to do more things than just be a beat cop or a patrol cop?
Ooh, funny.
At
least the ones that I've been associated with, though, I'll tell you, it is cliquish.
Yeah,
right?
I was just going to say, that's not fair, because those are all the guys that think like you and me. I mean, we've known each other 20-something years, and, like minds, work together. Okay, I'm, a SEAL team guy, you're a police officer, and we'll go into even some of the more things, but advice tell you, K9 and SWAT. But yeah, like, birds of a feather, you know what I mean? But if you're just looking out in the whole picture, would you assume that, or not assume, I'm going to assume that there's not as many motivated people to do more things within the department? And not your buddies, because that doesn't count, because you guys all work together as you climb the ladder. Do a lot of people climb the ladder and we'll go into yours, on where you are now in your career? I would consider you more the tip of the spear than a lot of the police officers that I know personally.
I could probably say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we could do the numbers.
Yeah, I think I think people want to do different things, but you find, and I think it's almost rare. And my wife's a medically retired police officer, and I think she could attest to this too. Is that there are those where you look at them and you go, that guy or that girl is going to be a beat cop forever, right? That's all they want to do.
Yes.
And God bless them. Hey,
no,
whatever.
No, we're not judging anybody, but I was just, because I want people that follow us, people that listen to us, to think to themselves is, wait a minute, I'm talking with Joe. Joe here is putting on this podcast, and the people he's getting on there are motivated people that where they may go. If we're not calling the individual to the carpet, we're calling people into the carpet, to go, hey man, try to do a little bit more, where can you succeed and be, exceptional in your life? When we leave this earth, I tell people all the time, is like, if I can just leave a thumbprint when I leave this earth to where people go, oh, yeah, Joe, that guy, I remember that guy. He was a good guy, as opposed to just being nobody. You know what I mean? And sometimes doing 20 years in the same thing, man, where's that aspiration? Let's get people motivated. You know what I mean? So Visalia, how many years were you there? 2?
5.5.
You're 5.5 years there, and correct me if I'm wrong, it does take you a little while to progress and be squared away to be K9. It does take you a little while to be accepted and try out and make the SWAT team, correct?
Yes.
Those are the answers. I'm looking, yes.
Well, I'd say that's a fair assumption. I mean,
yeah, it is. But also, too, is correct me if I'm wrong, is that you probably got there a little quicker than some.
Yes.
And I'm going to say, the foundation, which we're going into this warrior mindset, Dad was a military guy. You had to, not that I don't even know your dad. I'm not saying he's a, hardcore charging guy and he's going to, oh, my dad beat me. My dad didn't beat me. My dad was squared away. I did PT every day with your dad. No, but he's a military guy. Military mindset is just even being a normal human being. You had that as a foundation. Then all of a sudden you had all the sports type thing. There's a foundation. You want to play? You better practice more. Now you get into the department and you want to play? Yeah, we're going to give you that dog or we're going to give you that SWAT team, but you got to perform. Like, did you always have that mindset?
Yeah. I think looking back on it now, when you put it in that perspective, yes. To me, it just came natural to want to do more, I guess, or to excel. What I'll say is, though, as far as like my athletic career, I was kind of a natural athlete. I was one of those guys that I could almost pick up anything and just do it, right? Other than basketball. But you put me almost in any other sport and I could figure it out and do it, and some of it do it pretty well. Where you look at nowadays in my own two sons, you look, for example, they are not the natural born athletes that I was, right? But I tell you what, their work ethic is 100 times better than what I was back in the day.
So we'll say military first responder. We both had kids. You have two, I got one, boys. Do you think they learned that from you, knowing the way you've been? And myself with my career and, and whatnot now, post-military time too? Or do you think that's something that's kind of innate?
I think it's a little bit of both, quite honestly. I mean, I don't do it as much as I should, but, I still try and stay in shape. So, and I've worked out with both of my sons, right? My oldest son's 23 now. He's off on his own, what have you. But my youngest is 15. And I work out with him in the garage and bring him in here sometimes. And, so, and take him to private trainings. And that's not me saying, hey, you need to do this, right? And being that overbearing dad that
helicopter.
You're doing, this is, this is what you're going to do because this is what you want to do. And this is what I said, right? It's him. He wants to be better. And his mom and I are fortunate to be able to give him the opportunities to be better. And, luckily I'm still good enough shape that I can kind of,
a little bit of a run for his money.
I can hang with him just a little bit right now. It's because I know that time is coming, right?
Yeah.
Because he's 15 and he's since football season, he's put on 20 pounds. He's solid. He's strong, the whole 9 yards. But I think part of that is me, right? And part of it's innate in their own motivations to want to be the best or be better.
After the 5, what how'd you transfer from Visalia to up here?
Yes, 2001. There were some things that went on in Visalia that I didn't particularly agree with. So, and Fresno's the big dog in the valley, right? And they had the helicopters, they had the biggest SWAT team, they had all these other different specialized units that you could do. And I was like, hey, I'm going to go do that. So, and at the time I was going to get paid more. And right now we get paid more than most agencies in the valley. And so, I tested for Fresno and got picked up in 2001. Been with them ever since.
What do you got? 20.
So I got
22 years.
22 years here. Yeah.
Now, so like I've known you, gee whiz, well,
my entire career.
Well, you know, it's funny, Ed. Ironically, maybe 2002, maybe something like that. First came in, and we'll talk about some of the injuries along the way that you've had along the way. But did you even though you had the experience in the SWAT, experience with the K9, did you have to start off low man on totem pole?
Yeah.
Kind of. Yep. It's just
I say yes. You do numbers wise, right?
Yeah. Badge wise too.
Badge wise, yeah. I mean, your seniority is shot. You're down at the bottom, right?
Yeah.
You're down at the bottom. But if you have had success at other agencies, other bigger agencies, and you've done some
follow
things,
you.
Yeah, it kind of follows you. And at least at Fresno, as long as you weren't that guy that
dirtbag.
Yeah, that douche that I can do this. I've been there, done that kind of thing. Then you were going to move pretty quick, and I was lucky enough to be able to do that.
Yeah.
What
was it? So I think when we first met, I think you were just getting on board helicopters. I think.
No, actually, I think I was part of a street tag team at the time.
Oh, what?
Yeah, it was Southwest DISA.
Okay, maybe. Yeah, that was first. Yeah. And did you get picked up from there pretty quickly? Like once you had to do, you had to you get that little in-doc of like 1 year.
I want to say, it was maybe a year and a half.
Yeah.
I don't even think I did a full matrix in patrol detail before I went to tag teams. But the tag teams at the time were getting, they were expanding. They were going 2 to every district. They wanted 7-day coverage, so they had to have bodies to do it.
Right.
But when you're performing on patrol, right, those sergeants are going to look at you and go, hey, that's kind of what I want on this team.
So that's really going to the question here. Like when I was in the SEAL team, a lot of times you have on the board, there's, hey, listen, there's a school for this, a school for that, jump master, small arms weapons, scuba diving. I was a, combat swimming instructor, went through jump master school. Sometimes they're on the board. So if you're not gearing up for deployment, as long as you're rah-rah and, pretty squared away, there's like a school and they go 8 weeks here, 6 weeks there, whatever the case may be. you could go to these schoolings, or sometimes they would say, hey, you're going.
Mm-hmm.
With the police department, with that tactical team, was that raising your hand and go, hey, listen, I hear there's a spot open, I want to go? Or you were, a sergeant was like, hey, we like what you're doing, we would like you to,
Yeah, part of it was right place, right time.
Oh, right place,
So the sergeant that I was working for at the time had been selected to be the sergeant of the TAC team in a different district, but and he was like, well, I'm going to take my people with me. And so at least, two of us from his shift, myself and another guy, my partner at the time, he brought us over with him.
That's similar in the military, especially in the special forces. There's you keep squared away all the time, and if you're downtime, you're not in a platoon, and all of a sudden one of your buddies is getting a platoon put together, you get recommended, you just get to jump back into another platoon again, which was kind of cool. So you got that. How long were you on that team?
3.5, 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years.
Yeah,
and then you went to the helicopter.
Yeah, so I started in patrol,
right.
Then I was a field training officer for a short time. Then I went to the street TAC team, and then I went to.
So which a lot of people may not understand. You were a instructor, only a couple of years with Fresno, but you did 5 years, and they already picked you to, be a field officer.
It was funny, because I had
people understand that's a pretty cool thing.
When I got selected to be a field training officer, I wasn't off probation yet.
Yeah.
Here at the department, right?
Yeah.
So they sent me to field training school and had a few trainees and what have you, and then I ended up going to the street TAC team.
Do you think that and obviously, the world revolves around jealousies and things like that. Did you ever find that, people would be like,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Wait a minute. How did this guy deserve this?
Yeah, there was some of that, And at the time, probably my demeanor wasn't as open as as you go, hey, that guy's a cool guy, he's a good dude, what have you. No, most people thought I was pretty arrogant, including my wife. She thought I was pretty arrogant, right? So
there's a fine line.
Went on. There's
a fine line though, because like I've known you, obviously you're still married, she still keeps up with your arrogancy, but and I've known you for 20 years too. I personally wouldn't say it's that. I mean, I think it's an air of confidence. And that's, I think, why we stayed friends for so many years, because, you have that cut from the same cloth is like, I don't think I am, where I think people may have, like, I'm sure along the way have maybe thought that too. But I think it's that confidence that then will build, which then people you're going to eventually be in charge of are going to know, no matter what Skye asks for, I'm going to do because I trust him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So there's a fine line with that, isn't there?
There is.
With arrogancy and confidence. I think we both agree that most of it's confidence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And not arrogance, where some people
that's
may
what
take
I like to term it as, right? It's confidence. I was confident in my abilities, and that's where it went.
Then with that, because you would not have got picked up. There's no way as a field training officer if the word arrogance was there, because, they don't want that, because then it's all of a sudden maverick and you're doing your own thing and things like that. And you're definitely you're a guy that's since I've known you, you're a rule following guy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So the field training, and then how long were you working with the field training?
That was just short time. Yeah, because then they built out those tag teams. Yeah. So then I went to the tag teams. I was there for 3.5, 4 years, and then I went to the department had a training unit, so we did all advanced officer training, that kind of stuff for the department, and so I got picked up to go there, and I was only there for a year, and then I went to the helicopters.
And that was how long? Your spotter? Is that what they call it?
They call it tactical flight officer. Yeah. So I was a tactical flight officer, and I was 3.5 years.
Being with those guys. And those were was that mainly a night? Do you rotate there? Is there 2 shifts on that?
No. We have 2 helicopters, but it was mostly a swing shift.
Oh, swing shift.
Yeah, 4 p.m. to 2 a.m.
Yeah.
So I was on that. Yeah.
When shit's hitting the fan.
When it's happening, yeah.
And you got both birds up? Same time?
No. So, one would either be in maintenance or, and so you'd be flying the other one, and they had them on these rotations. So you know which one you're going to fly on what date. The mechanics had all that stuff dialed in.
Yeah. And is that considered a tour? Like 3 years and then you got to peel out of there? Or you just got bored? Or
No. There was some
Issues.
conflict. There was some conflict there with some department administrative staff that
it was probably better for you to go to a different
well,
department.
we went back to, we're going in a different direction and you're not part of those plans.
Yeah, so far in your career, you got a different direction twice so far. Yes.
Yeah.
As we continue with this career, there may have been a couple more times.
Yeah.
We're going in a different direction.
Yeah. And the things that the way it traditionally had worked out was, you were going to do your time in the seat, in the left seat, doing all the, the night sun, the radios. We'd like to call it the police side of it because you were doing the police side of it, whereas the pilot was doing all the air stuff, right?
Yeah.
Keeping that bird up in the air. And so the progression was generally when a pilot position came open, senior TFO would slide over, right, and then send him to pilot school. So that's what I was looking at, and I was next up on deck,
and
right?
didn't get it.
And then it was we're going in a different direction.
Somebody else
was
went in
not
the
happy.
pilot seat. Yeah. Did you go to SWAT after that?
No, I was on SWAT at that time. So I got picked up.
Because SWAT's not full time in Fresno.
No, it's a collateral duty. So I got picked up.
Went through the training program, passed that.
Well, I'd already been through SWAT school with Visalia.
Oh, check.
Right. So I didn't need to go through another SWAT school because I already had the certification.
Yeah.
So when I got here, that's probably one of the reasons that they were like, hey, we don't have to spend money on this guy, sending him to SWAT school. Right. Yeah. So that was one of the reasons that I got picked up, I'm sure. But I'd like to think the rest of it was because I was qualified for it. I'd already been out on deployments. We did high risk entries, we did vehicle takedowns, we did all of that stuff. So I had that experience, and I was hoping that would play into my selection, and it obviously did because I was picked up, my first go around, and that's generally not the case.
Oh, to SWAT.
Yeah, with SWAT, generally people have to go around 2-3 times before they get picked up. But again, timing, right place, right time, experience, that kind of stuff. So I'm sure that helped me.
The confidence, not the arrogance.
Confidence, not the arrogance.
Not
exactly.
The arrogance. Exactly. With that in the SWAT team, did you guys switch around? Like say for example in a platoon in the SEAL team, you got a point man, you got a rear security, you got the radio guy, blah blah blah. And obviously from a tactical point of view, with the SWAT team, do you guys maneuver around just so you don't become complacent and things like that, or is it you got a job duty and that's what you stay with?
Well, there is kind of where you would progress, but generally everybody that's new would always go to the perimeter.
Check.
Right. So we had a perimeter team, we had a sniper element, and then we had 2 entry teams.
Yeah.
Everybody or most people were trying to get to the entry teams.
Yeah.
Right. But the entry guys stayed there for a while.
Yeah.
Right. So I was on the perimeter team for, I want to say 3 years or so. And then some of the entry guys got promoted. So that opened up some spots. And so then you're looking at, your team leaders on entry that would say, well, I'm going to bring this guy over. We'll throw him through some training, see if he's going to work, see how he is with interacting with the rest of the team, the entry teams and that kind of stuff. So I was on the perimeter team for 3 years, and then I went to entry.
Also, too, is correct me if I'm wrong. Like, so say for example, you got an entry team and somebody, in the military class up, second class, third class petty officer, you take the corporal test or you become a sergeant. You got to kick back out of there, and then take it. Can you still stay with the SWAT team?
Well, if you promote to sergeant, yes. Yeah,
yes,
you get booted.
You get booted. You got to go back and you got to do all the admin stuff. Corporal, you can stay there.
Yeah, right? If you're a 2-striper, you can stay there.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Did you get 2-striper there, or you already have that?
No, I never even tested for that. They called it a senior officer, I think is what our 2-stripers were. We're our ATLs, right?
Yep.
And I don't know. I never put in for that. There was no value to it for me. They didn't pay you extra to do it. They certainly gave you a lot more responsibility.
Yeah.
Right. With no pay. But the guy that we had, he's a brother of mine, and he's been on the team 26 or 27 years now. So he's got his shit wired tight. Yeah. He knows who he is and what he can do. And then our team leader at the time, he's still the entry team leader. He's former Marine, squared away, knew exactly what he was doing, had his, the best.
Is he a regular officer though, or is he sergeant?
He's a pilot.
He's a pilot.
Yeah, he's a pilot. I'm telling you, the guy is squared away, right? He knows exactly what he's doing. So he's not only the entry team leader, but he's also the sergeant, the supervisor in charge of our air support unit, and he's a pilot. He probably has 4,000 plus hours of flight time.
Gosh, damn.
Most of that at night.
Yeah.
But so when I was on the entry team, I didn't go for the 2-striper thing, but
When did you
because
apply
my
for?
build,
Uh-huh.
and my lefty swing,
Mhm.
they said, hey, you're going to be our breacher. So I was a breacher on our entry team.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And then when did you kind of decide to move up the ladder?
Oh, well, for the most part, I had done everything I wanted to do in police work, right?
Yeah.
I'd been canine, I'd been a SWAT, and I did air support. And, I
right.
figured, well, and I did detectives and things of that nature, but,
That's right. That's right.
I did the stuff that I wanted to do, and I said, well, it's probably time for me to start, at least
See
testing.
what the admin stuff looks
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, and not so much even the admin stuff, that's all part of it, but
Mm-hmm.
just the supervision part of it, Start moving up a rank and you start looking at your retirement and
Right.
how to better your retirement, where you want to be in the department in the future.
Team leader aspect.
Team leader
Yep.
aspect, that whole 9 yards, right, starts
Yeah.
coming into play. So I promoted to sergeant in 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when you're going for that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because it seems like just in you and I talked about it a bunch when you were, studying and all that, man, way more complicated than people think. Oh my God.
It's
It's an ordeal.
it's
Interviews and testing and
It's a-
stuff. We would talk about it. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, damn. It's like, going back to graduate school.
well, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the information that you needed to know,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't just you study this one book.
Yeah.
Like here's your algebra book or here's your U.S. history book. That's only part of it, right? So you start looking at this, what they call a legal source book, and it's probably 5 inches thick,
Yeah.
but it gives you almost every,
Scenario or whatever.
as much as you can, because
Right.
you can't account for everything that's going to go on out there.
Mhm.
But, this is the case law and this is what it's built off of and this is what we follow, right? So you look at that and that's kind of the guiding principle for all of California.
Mhm.
And then you start looking at our policy manual. Well, our policy manual, 700 pages.
Yeah.
Right. So you're looking at all the policies then they have a procedure manual at the time. They've now since, combined them. But at the time they had a procedure manual and that was 600 plus pages. And then you had the Peace Officer Bill of Rights that you had to look at. And then you had to, then they they said, well, you need to read this book and we're going to ask you questions on this book. Right. So you had all this information that you had to know, but you didn't know what they were going to pull 100 questions out of. Right.
Right.
Here's your 100 questions, but
Yeah.
that
could
100
be-
questions
yeah,
is coming from all of this,
Exactly.
right? And you don't know exactly what it is.
It was funny because when we, as we're talking about this, I can remember thinking to myself just privately as you and I were talking about, all the studying, you come in and, man, I got to working on this, I got to work on that. And, I was thinking to myself, it's almost like when I was trying to pass the boards, for the chiropractic, you have all this material and anatomy, physiology, blah, 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 this and that. And you got to then take the test. But then on top of that, correct me if I'm wrong where I'm going with this, there's also an oral presentation or, whatever, to where it was like, oh my God, it's just like going through chiropractic, for my boards because then they don't have it anymore. But it was an oral board where, panel of 3 doctors can ask you any question from the only information you studied from. And you're like, oh my God, talk about, the stress level is crazy. But also too is, correct me if I'm wrong, I think from Sergeant, you're up there in the top couple guys that, grade wise, right? Or whatever you want to call it, pass, whatever, right? Where you graduated or where you finished, right?
Yeah.
Was top 5?
That was one.
Oh, it was. Oh,
It was number 1, yeah.
sorry. And just make sure it's clear to everybody.
Well, you asked.
Okay, but here's the thing too: is correct me if I'm wrong. You could be that number 1, but then you interview, and if you can't interview, you could possibly get passed over.
Well, yeah. So the way that the department worked it is the first thing is the written test, right? It's 100 questions,
Yeah.
and again, it's over all that material, and you don't know
topping-
what's
Topping the test taker.
Yeah, so
that
you have
circle.
a minimum score to be
Yeah.
qualified to go on to the orals and assessments.
Yeah,
So I did well on the written.
number 1.
Well, I got 95 on the written. I didn't know I was number 1 at the time, but I got 95 on the written. And then you go to the oral boards and assessments. And, usually you do that in a day. But because there was 110 candidates at the time,
Jeez.
it was
That's
a 5-day period,
Yeah.
because they had to get everybody through. And you had
Right.
to, they all had to go through the same oral boards and assessments
Mm-hmm.
with the same assessors. And, so after doing the oral boards, the written, the oral boards, and the assessment, I came out number 1.
And it's kind of interesting because with the department, I think with the military too, more so with the police department, you have to have very good people skills.
You should, yeah,
You should,
absolutely.
which is kind of interesting because, you get the written, you get, the number one in there. But then I remember I was talking about the interview and things like that. And it was like some of the questions they would ask you and, try to throw you for a loop, try to get you pissed off, try to ruffle your feathers. And, do you think that from your years of experience and the stresses of being on the mound, being at bat, things like that, coming from a military background, do you think that prepared you a little bit to like, you're not going to affect me mentally? Do you feel that some of those things in the past helped you for that interview?
Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt, I think, I had to deal with a single parent household, right? So I had to deal with a divorce. Mm-hmm. My mom and dad got divorced, and then I lived with my dad. It's not typical, right? Generally, it's usually with mom, but I was with my dad, and we moved around, and then we got to Taft. And then my dad, when I went into baseball, my dad started having some health issues. Mm-hmm. Wasn't in best health at all. Traditional sailor, right? Yeah. Smoked, 2-3 packs a day. Yeah. Grew up in the 50s and 60s, and so everything was fried
food. Yeah,
fried food.
Exactly.
Grandma made the fried potatoes and the whole 9 yards. Delicious, right? Just not all that good for you,
close
right?
Those arteries.
So he ended up, in fact, when I was so I was I was either at spring training or I was at rookie ball, but I had to fly back because my dad had a stroke, and so I came back for a little while. And then, when he got better, I flew back and what have you. And he had to have a quadruple bypass. I found out, the whole 9 yards. So he was doing bad as far as his health was concerned. And then, you move me along, and so I was with Visalia for, I don't know, just a couple of years at the time. But, my sergeant pulls me out of briefing, and that's how I found out that my dad had passed away. Mm-hmm. I was at work, and he was only 49 at the time when he passed away. So when you look at, the stuff that I'd already dealt with, and then plus the experiences that I had, life experiences and the experiences professionally, there wasn't a whole lot that was going to, ruffle me. I could deal with most things because, for me at the time, what was worse than losing a parent? Probably losing a kid. And I hope I never experienced that. But, losing a parent was a big deal, especially when that's all I had at the time.
Right. So if somebody's on this end doing an interview with you and trying to ruffle your feathers, in the back of your mind, you're kind of going, okay, man, you're not going to affect me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you also have to, you have to be ready for that because oral boards and assessments are built for a purpose.
Yeah.
Right. And so there is a way to take an interview. There's a way to go through an assessment center. And I'm not going to say that my life experiences led me to that, but it helped. Yeah. But I also took a course on how to do that. So,
you were prepped for it.
I was prepped.
So when you got done from the sergeant, see how good my memory is. Did you go, you went Southwest, right? Weren't you sergeant at Southwest?
Yeah. Originally when I got promoted,
because I think we used to meet, I think because we met because when my son was playing baseball, we did a bunch of games over at Edison.
Yeah.
And I think you had come to a couple of games for Connor. And you're on duty, or you were going on duty, or whatever.
Yeah, I think when I was originally released, I think I was Southwest. I think you're right. Yeah,
for a minute. Yeah,
I went Southwest, Central. Really, I stayed South End when I was a sergeant. Yeah,
yeah. And then, what made you? Is it I kind of know the answer, but from the audience point of view, made you to move on? To then kind of get some bars on the collar.
Well, after patrol, I got I got selected to be a team leader, SRT sergeant for a TAC team, and did that for a little bit. And it was, again, one of those things where you go, well, I've kind of done what I wanted to do. I knew that SWAT wasn't going to open up because it's SWAT and those guys usually stay for a long time. I wasn't going back into the air unit. And so it was like, well, what's next for me? I knew that I wanted to promote, so I had to kind of move around as a supervisor, as a sergeant, right? So I had done the
Is that kind of punching your time a little bit in order to go for lieutenant?
You punch your time, and they want you to have different experiences, right? Yeah. And so, they go, we know that you have a total of 15 years on a SWAT team. That's great, right? You check that box for tactical, right? That's all good. And then, well, what about investigations, right? So you start looking at, I was a detective on two different, for two different districts, so I'm good there, right? And they said, well, what about your admin time? Well, what are you talking about admin time? You know,
That's right, because you went to
yeah, so from internal affairs.
internal affairs.
Yeah.
That's right. Oh, that's right. I
Yeah.
remember, yeah.
Yeah,
That was
so-
2 years.
I did 2.5 years in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, that was way out of my comfort zone and,
Yeah.
and, you know, my wheelhouse. Tactics was where I was at, right?
Yeah, but you know what the funny thing about it is, because I remember we've talked to some stories in there. You're one of those guys, and the people that know you, in the department, because I see a ton of the police officers and whatever. No one can say about you that nobody knows where you're at. Like, if it's in a policy, that's what we're working with. Like, nobody can say he skews to the right or to the left. If it's in a policy, you're going to know where Skye stands, because if it's here, that's what I'm going to go on. If it's not, I'm sorry, this is what I'm going on. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the idea that, when I first went in there, so there was a lot of stuff that had went on, and I had been lucky. So, all the tag teams that I'd been on, there was a very high likelihood that I had used some force, at times throughout my career, especially working the area of towns that I was working and then dealing with the people that I was dealing with. But I hadn't been in IA a whole lot. All my use of forces, everything was within policy. And the 2 times that I did go to IA, I was exonerated because they go,
it was within
you
boundaries.
did exactly what you were supposed to do, so there was no merit to it. But I had seen some things where other officers were getting accused of misconduct that I didn't particularly think was right, and I didn't understand the process at the time. But I was like, I'm a sergeant and I want to go in there and if our guys have done wrong, then yes, they need to be held accountable without a doubt, right? There's that public trust, the whole 9 yards.
Check.
But on the flip side of that too is if our guys are doing the things right,
you're going to protect them.
They should be protected, right?
And that's the reputation that I've always known. First of all, I've known your integrity just because we've been friends for so long. But letting you know, you may not always hear it too, but when I'm letting you know what people tell me, and it's exactly what they say. If you're within the right and it's within the book, whatever the open book is, you are going to protect them to the fullest of your capacity. You know what I mean? If somebody says no, it's no. If somebody says yes, it's yes. But you're going to protect them. Also, too, is it said out to the outhouse, and you're going to get a switch, and Johnny's going to get it from the outside because Johnny did not do what he should have done.
Yeah,
and it still follows the same book.
That wasn't up to me, right?
Yeah.
Being a sergeant in internal affairs, you're just a fact finder.
Yep.
Right? That's really all you are. You need to find out what occurred, what occurred, or what didn't occur, right? And if it led to discipline, it was going to be up to people well above my pay grade, right?
Yep,
I'm just giving you the information. Here's the report.
Exactly.
Here's the evidence that supports it. Here's what you need to look at, right? And they make the decisions from there.
Yeah.
So I wasn't too concerned about that because unfortunately for the officers that it affected, my investigation, some of my investigations led to their termination,
Yeah, but rightfully so, bro. Right?
Well, and like I said, it was about accountability, and you look at, I didn't do what you did, right? And these are just the facts, and this is the evidence supported.
Exactly.
So, you were the one that was in the shoes, not me.
Yeah, exactly.
And so all I'm doing is making a report and giving it up the chain, and they're making a decision, and quite honestly, we don't need those type of people in our profession. We already have a black eye. And so we don't need any more of that. But the public needs to know that we're holding people accountable and they are getting terminated. Many people don't see that because, right, it's a quote unquote personnel issue, so they won't release a lot of the facts. So when you're in internal affairs, a lot of information that not even the entire department knows, right? That not many of the entire department knows. Sometimes not even the executive staff knows. It's just you and the chief, right? And anybody that's in internal affairs, that's all that knows the information because it's a personnel issue.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, I got into the profession for a reason, right? And so anybody that affects it negatively, tarnishes that same badge that I'm wearing, I got a problem with it.
Well, and also too is I think, you and I kind of, again, cut from the same cloth is like, at the end of the day, basically we hit the rack with our integrity.
Yeah.
That's all, it's kind of all we got. If you maintain your integrity throughout your life, we can leave this earth knowing that, we did a good thing, for people along the way. After internal affairs, is that when you tested out?
Close. So I left internal affairs and I went to motors.
Okay, I was trying to remember because I was we've been good friends for a long time, and as much as he probably doesn't remember, like I'm talking about things. You go, damn, how does Doc freaking remember all that shit? But I thought motors, what you already had put on lieutenant.
No,
when you went to motors first.
No.
Okay,
First. Yeah, first I went to motors and was there for a short time before I went to lieutenant. Then I got promoted to lieutenant. Yeah.
And was that a box checker for you, or you always wanted to?
No, it was just I've ridden motorcycles.
Yeah.
In my personal life, and I got in an accident on the 41 and did the Honda roll over the handlebars on my Harley, and so the wife kind of put a kibosh on that for a little bit. But when I got selected for motors, they were going to put me through the 2-week motor school and what have you, and so
you're officially trained as opposed to trying to be on the Harley by yourself.
Yeah, and it's funny when I went through that motor school, I was like, man, I don't know how I didn't kill myself. I had no idea how to ride.
There's a lot of stuff you learned.
Yeah, that's having done all the things that I've done, motor school is probably the toughest school I've ever been to. Yeah, trying to control that 700-pound bike and ride it the way some people can ride it.
Some of these guys are really.
You look at some of the motor officers, and if they've passed motor school, they know how to ride.
So with that being said, are there a lot of guys in motor that you can stay there for a while if you wanted? Yeah. So some of these guys are unbelievable, huh?
Oh, there's lifetime motor guys.
There are.
Oh yeah. And you watch some of them that in their competitions.
Unbelievable.
And you're just like, I don't know how you do that.
Yeah.
How you ride the bike that slow, or how you got it through those cones, because there's not a whole lot of room.
It almost looks like they're laying it down like a competition bike, and these things are heavy, and they're doing it like these guys on those speedways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I was glad to been able to do that. And at the time there was a bunch of motors that seemed to have been going down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Usually cars making left turns in front of them. And so there was a lot of traffic collisions and, officers that were getting hurt and things of that nature. So that worried my wife, but, we also got paid hazardous duty pay.
Yeah, exactly.
so that did help out, right? Yeah. But, and I think she knew that I wasn't going to be there very long, because I was sitting number 5 on the lieutenant's list. And so some people had already been promoted. So, my number was coming up. Yeah.
Is that a big testing thing like the sergeant, or is just kind of more of a promotion?
No, there's testing with it, but not the number of people.
Yeah. Oh, not the number of people.
Yeah. So, like I said, when I was testing for sergeant, there was 110 that tested. And then for lieutenant, it was 26, I think.
Gotcha.
Right. And
was there a big test with material, just like in book studying, like there was a sergeant?
Written test, there was a written test. And then you went through the oral boards and assessments, just like that. I think when you get to captain, I don't think there's a written, then it's the oral boards and assessments.
Right.
And then when you get above captain, it's one of those appointed things.
So with lieutenant, the more boxes you checked along the way, did that help you during selection?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, they were familiar with what I had done in the department.
Yeah.
And during that time, I was able to, get my master's degree. And so they knew I had the educational aspect of it, and I knew how to write. I was a good writer. I can talk to people. I had checked all the boxes, so I was a good qualified candidate for it.
Yeah, you kind of beat me to the punch, because I was going to go back to college then after that, which is good. What was the master's in?
Law enforcement, public safety leadership. So it was the inaugural It was the inaugural class 2017 for University of San Diego.
Yeah. And then obviously it bode well, obviously, when you're going up for the board, to get lieutenant, correct?
Yeah. I don't think it hurts.
Yeah. Did the other 20 or 15 or whether the top notch guys gals, did they have masters?
4 of the top 5 had master's degrees.
So it's almost like a prereq.
Yeah.
Kind of in a way.
Yeah, and the other one had a bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
So everybody had degrees, but 4 of the top 5 had masters.
Yeah. I mean, which myself personally, because I've obviously gone on in my career too, I just think that, the more you learn from a knowledge point of view, the better you are to assess situations, right? Whether it's you're knocking on a door, domestic violence, and you have some, educate on psychology, sociology, even if it's a minor, associates or a bachelor's degree in arts, and you have that, the communication skills, public speaking, all those things, where back in the day, it's just like, strap on a a firearm and you're a police officer. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but I think nowadays, a lot of departments are almost, requiring, maybe in the country, like a bachelor's degree, and a lot of it is in the psychology aspect because it's every day you're in front of the public.
Well, a little more analytical, right?
Yeah.
From an educational standpoint, people tend to be more analytical because they're looking at all the information and trying to make best decisions off of that, and that's what agencies want. Our candidates that take a look at all the information that is being presented to them and then act on that one way or another, right?
Yeah.
Make decisions based on that or act in a way based on that information.
So, obviously we've been in the you and I've had a lot of commonality in the fitness industry. You know what I mean? Within the police department over the years, was it PAL? Would you call it PAL? What's the? Oh no, the police and fire Olympics.
Yep.
Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
And you've competed in there twice.
Twice, yeah.
Twice. It was boxing, correct?
Boxing, yeah.
Boxing. That was a little bit ago though.
It's been a while.
It's been a while from there.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we're working on, especially in this facility in the gym, is we're working on, getting candidates for the department ready. Fresno, Clovis, the big ones, and then some of the outskirts. We're trying to implement that program. Where do you see the fitness aspect of our young men and women coming in now? Do you think they're getting any better?
Yeah,
than it was?
I think they are coming here in worse shape. They're coming out of here in better shape.
Oh, we'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, when you look at it, society as a whole probably isn't in the best shape that like they used to be, right? And I mean, I'm part of that. But at almost 50 years old, I'm in better shape than my dad was, right? When I look at that, I'm in better shape than many of my peers that I look at that are the same age. But one of the big deals in law enforcement now is wellness, right? And then you're looking at not only mental health, but you're looking at physical health, and I think one affects the other, right? So when we're implementing physical fitness as part of a wellness program, it's a good thing, Now, can we mandate that they work out? I wish we could. Yeah. Right. There is a physical fitness standard, or there is, fit for duty, right, like we call it. But when you look at it from a realistic standpoint, there's really no standard there where you go, hey, you need to maintain this standard. But what we are doing, at least at our agency, and I know many other agencies are doing this, but at our agency, because we've built new district substations, every district substation that has been built has a fitness room, right? A small fitness room that's open to all the employees that work at that particular. It's open to all the department members, but obviously, if you work at that district station, you'd be more likely to use it. Yeah. I'm trying to get that over there in the Southwest District Station, because now our Southwest Station is the oldest station that we have, right? And we're trying to find places for a gym. Then we're talking about how are we going to pay for gym equipment? Right. How are we going to run it? How is it going to be open? What equipment is needed? The whole 9 yards. Mm-hmm. Well, luckily, I kind of know somebody in the fitness industry that might be able to help me with that, right?
Kind of.
So. But, I do see what you do here with the recruits on Fridays, and they come in and work out and trying to get them prepped for the academy, what they're going to face in the academy. Now, it's been years since I've been in the academy.
We got a whole, in the Fresno County, we got a whole brand new training facility. I think it's fire department too, correct?
Yeah, fire and EMS.
And EMS too. But like the concept that I've thought about, and we've talked about this for years, and we've kind of volleyed it back and forth, and how I can still help, and you're implementing too because you've been in shape your whole life. And yes, obviously we go peaks and valleys when people are in better shape than they were before. I mean, right now in your department, you're not on the road as much, you're not interacting, you're more to desk type of position. But the concept that I try to present out there is we call it the anatomy of a tactical athlete, right? So we want to take it, and you're a prime example, and that's why we, as we finish and closing here pretty soon with this conversation, is to where you have a guy that's been a professional athlete, right? We have different training programs for that sport. Well, I like to think of it as a police officer, and a firefighter, EMS too, because they're lifting, bending, twisting, turning with gurneys and all this type of stuff, that you want to have these first responders acting like a professional athlete, in the sense from a training point of view, injury prevention, the motivation, the chemical, which is, the diet and exercise, and the diet aspect, the mechanical side is the exercise. Then the psychological part, which you talk about myself being in the service, you being in for as long as you are a professional athlete, to where we get these men and women to where we set them off at a foundation, that warrior mindset, that warrior foundation, to where we set these guys and gals, once they're in a program, they start off, whether it's a prep program here like we have right now, or it's in the academy, to where they understand the psychological aspect, they understand the diet, nutritional part, and they understand the mechanical part. Because, the old cliche, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that when a police officer retires, they have this huge party 5 years later because, the mortality rate, is a fire, mainly police officers. I've heard the story that 5 years after, if they get 5 years after and they live, they're all happy that they live. I'm like, oh my God, that's freaking nuts.
Yeah.
Because like you said, almost hitting 50. I'm blessed. This year I'll be 63. You know what I mean? But my mindset is, if I tell somebody that I was a former team guy, I better still look the part personally. You don't have to. There's people that let themselves go, firefighters, police officers do. But if we can change the mindset where you say, no, I'm a police officer, where some little kid along the way go, man, that guy or that gal, she looks in great shape for what they're doing. And then when they get out, no, I did 20 years, I did 30 years, and they're still participating in some sort of activities, we're going to have people live longer in their life. And that's what our job is, as a lieutenant now, making sure there's a lot of safety aspects, human resources, making sure people get injury prevention. But if we can promote to them, hey, listen, the Twinkies and the ho-hos are probably not a good idea. I don't think a lot of police officers nowadays smoke the way it was maybe 30 years ago.
Right.
We've changed that mindset. But then we go, and then a little bit of exercise. You know what I mean? It's beyond me, So if I can be, that catalyst to go, hey, listen, this is where I am right now. If I'm still doing it, and then you don't have to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Right. You know what I mean? But if you're having some sort of activities, if I'm still doing it, man, you can still do it too. Let's keep you healthy. So you're getting to a point, we've talked about it a bunch, getting ready to retire at some point soon. What do you mean 5 more years?
Yeah.
You have 5 more years, your wife will kill you.
Yeah.
Before the 5 years. She says, no, you're not leaving 5 more years. You got to be crazy. And you should be even more active as we get older. Yeah. You know what I mean? Not less. It's not going to be the same. I'm not deadlifting 450 and whatever like I used to, but I'll pull 300, 315 off the floor. Yeah. As
long as you're still getting 3 wheels, right? You're good. Yeah.
But hey, listen, I just wanted to, let the audience know. And listen, I really appreciate you and I could go on for hours like this. We've been friends for a long time. He's got so much information, and we're going to kind of put some stuff, camera guy, Frank's going to put some stuff on there with some of his information. He's got a lot of great ideas, for different departments. So if different departments, have some ideas on, how he'd like to implement it. We talked a ton about trying to nutrition and fitness and things like that, and post type of certification programs that he's got, great ideas for. So, you can always DM Skye on that type of stuff to get his information. And I'm sure he'd be more than happy to, give you guys out there, some information. But, hey man, I thank you very much for, coming on the show with that warrior mindset. I think you're one of the guys that I've kept close with, 20 some odd years, that every day, man, you put on an armor. Every day you make sure your wife and your kids are taken care of. And, I totally appreciate, you coming on today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, Doc.
Yeah.
It's always good to talk to you.
Hey, thank you very much. This is Dr. Joe Martin with the Warrior Mindset Podcast. Definitely, hit the link below. Subscribe if you have any information, any questions for us along the way. Please feel free to give us a call. Each week we try to bring on somebody that has a great story. Like I said, Skye and I could talk, for hours on life. You know what I mean? So we look forward to seeing you guys in the future. Once again, this is Dr. Joe Martin. Thanks for watching.